Today on Unscripted, I'm sitting down with Hannah and Doug Venn from Adventist Possibility Ministries. And he's going to describe a need that is bigger. The need in total is bigger than the country I was born in. You're not going to believe what this is. Stay tuned. Welcome to another absolutely riveting episode of Unscripted, brought to you by the fantastic people at the Adventist Review. I'm Shawn Boonstra, and today with me is another editor from the Adventist Review. You've met her before.
I'm Hannah Drewieck.
And our guest today is
Pastor Doug Venn.
Pastor Doug Venn from Adventist Possibility Ministries. Now, Doug, we're going to talk about an awful lot today on the show, but what I'm curious about is, where does Doug come from? How do you end up in ministry, period, and how do you get from where you started to Adventist Possibility Ministries in 1 minute or less?
Okay. Well, I want to frame it as windows of grace.
Okay.
Because our family, it was through children's ministry that my family, my mom's from South America, my dad grew up as a pastor's kid from another denomination, and we went it was Sabbath school. So our landlords in Washington State, they invited us to Sabbath school. So that's how we started this discipleship journey. And then later on, when I was in high school, I had a chance to work at our summer camp near Seattle, Washington, and I had a chance to then interact with the national camps for the blind.
Oh, no kidding.
And so then later on, I got to go to school, and I had a chance. One of my classmates was deaf. And so that's where, through the friendship and through that, and then when my wife and I got married, we had a chance then to experience hidden disabilities in our family, as well as then for the last 6.5 years, we've been caregivers for my mother-in-law.
Oh, so this has become your whole life.
This is life.
And
this is life in ministry.
Timing today is surreal because April 18th is a special Sabbath, right?
That's right. And the World Church is celebrating and commemorating this day for Adventist Possibility Ministries.
All right, so here's what I need all of you to do. Number one, if you're watching on YouTube, look right below my face. Right down there is the subscribe button. And I know that some of you have yet to push it, and I know that you didn't. I know who you are, so push it now. It's free. And if you don't love the experience 3 months from now, I'll give your money back. Everything you paid to push that button. So push it now. But secondly, I want you to remember April 18. I want you to plan to give. Adventist Possibility Ministries, this is an outreach, as you're going to see today, is absolutely critical. You need to plan to give. And not just $5 in the plate. Pray about it. Think about it. And let's do something for people to get them into the arms of Jesus.
Amen.
All right. Well, listen, that's this Sabbath. It's April 18. We've talked about Adventist Possibility Ministries, and I think it's over to you, Hannah.
Yeah, Doug, we know there are several examples of disabilities in the Bible. Tell me about some of your favorites.
Well, I love where Jesus in Luke chapter 18 and 19, he's actually going through one of his cities, and that's Jericho. And there on the outskirts of Jericho, we run into Bartimaeus, as it says in Mark 10 through 10, chapter. In Mark 10, verses 46 through 52.
Almost there. I'm almost there. All right. Okay, go.
We can find here that Jesus is healing this blind man on the outskirts. And it's thrilling that this blind man, Mark gives us his name, Bartimaeus, he actually has greater insights on who Jesus is than the crowd around him. And so that was thrilling to see. So that's one of my favorites. Then we continue into Jesus going through the city of Jericho in Luke chapter 19, and that's where he runs into Zacchaeus.
Right.
And what was going on with Zacchaeus?
Well, I couldn't see.
Why?
Because he's not tall enough to see over the crowd. Now, I'm going to say this. Forgive me, honey, but I come from one of the tallest groups of people on earth, and my wife from one of the shortest, and there's at least a foot between us in difference. And our pictures look like she's related to Zacchaeus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but see, that's something where Zacchaeus, not only because of his profession and his stature and his physical, his experience was that he was an outcast. And so that's the situation that many people with disabilities and the deaf community, they feel that social stigma. And so that's why I love that story of how Jesus, he then says, I want to go to your house, Zacchaeus. And that's where he has this chance to then reunite and restore Zacchaeus into the community there. and to put this new group of believers in his home.
No, it's almost like he's the only one Jesus saw that day. That I find, out of everybody, here's a guy who feels unseen, and he's about the only one. No, didn't go home with anybody else that day.
No, that's right.
That's remarkable to me.
Anyway, so those are a couple of the stories that inspire me of how Jesus, he modeled this ministry on the streets of his cities. Now, if we go to Capernaum, go to Jerusalem, go to even the 10 cities of the Decapolis, we could actually see Jesus there interacting with so many other people, because 75% of his miracles were with the people with disabilities. And so we as Seventh-day Adventists...
75%?
Correct.
I had never done the math. That's astonishing. He sees those that we tend to try not to see sometimes.
And we ignore. And so that's where right now I'm so thrilled about this ministry, because we have a chance to then mobilize people who have been forgotten and set aside, mobilize them for mission.
Wow.
So that thrills me, because that's what Jesus did.
Now, here's what I think about Bartimaeus, and see if I'm onto something here. It occurs to me, the first face he ever sees is Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. And there is an entire segment of the population, you'd know the numbers, but there's an entire segment of the population who will also, that's the first face they'll actually see. And there's a segment of the population, the first voice they ever hear is Jesus calling them awake at the resurrection. It's mind-blowing to me.
It's thrilling.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, what about Adventist pioneers? I know we were chit-chatting in the green room and so on, and you have some stories from our Adventist history too, don't you?
Well, it's thrilling to see how that when we look at disability or the deaf community from Scripture, why do we experience this? And a lot of people, the disciples, ask the question, who sinned? Was it this man, or was it his parents? In John chapter 9, and Jesus says, no, let's reframe this picture from a mission standpoint. It's neither this man or this his parents sinned, but it was to bring glory to God. And so see that reframing this from, I'm choosing to look at it from the three angels' messages to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people group. So these are 7 distinct people groups that God is inviting us to then help make disciples, as well as then mobilize them to become disciple makers. And this is even in our Adventist history. So I brought some pioneers here with me in my bag. So here's a quick quiz. Who's this guy?
All right. Okay, I didn't grow up Adventist, so, and I'm not as old as that picture, or as old as you, I don't think.
That's true. I'm 1 year older.
Just 1 year, okay.
But,
so you're much my senior. That's what that means.
What magazine, who's hosting this?
Oh, this is the Adventist Review.
He was one of the...
I'm going with...
He was one of the editors.
I'm going with Uriah Smith.
That's right.
That's
right.
But when...
One for one. I just want everyone to see, this is a historical moment. I got a question right.
Okay, so Uriah Smith, when he was 12 years old, he had an infection in his leg.
I didn't know that.
He had his leg amputated.
Oh.
And yet, we see from our Adventist history, he's a accomplished editor. He's a scholar. We see all of these things of what he has done, not framing what he can't do. And so that inspires me from our Adventist history. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's one. I'll let you. You can hold him. and the cheat sheet notes are on the back there.
Oh, you were cheating, Doug. All right, folks. All right, I just want you to know that when I get answers wrong here, Doug would have gotten them wrong had he not had the cheat sheet.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm going to get a 0 on this.
Here's a couple, and this. Let me just help you out with it.
Okay.
But there's no cheat sheet notes on this one, but. And a couple years ago, I wrote an article for Adventist Review that highlights DeGrove and Grace Turk.
Oh,
and they were in New York.
I've heard those names.
They were in New York State. They came and they met Jesus through the Advent message. And then, despite DeGrove's blindness, they became a singing evangelist couple.
Come on.
And they played banjo together, and they had the tent. And so it's thrilling that we can see in our Adventist history the contribution for mission that people with disabilities have. And so that's our heritage as Adventists, and to look here to see at how the contribution, these are 3 of the pioneers with possibilities. I like to frame it that way.
Yeah, the Uriah Smith thing I find fascinating. I don't know how I've been an Adventist for close to 35 years, And I didn't know that. I didn't know he was missing a leg. I had no idea.
But
are there photos of him with a crutch or missing the leg? Do we have?
We'll have to look at the website to find out more.
Okay. And where is that website? Just in case.
Well, it's your website here. Look in the video.
Look in the video. Okay.
That's
okay.
right.
All right.
That's right.
Well, we'll find out for you whether there are. Well, I'm just curious because not everybody. Not everybody was painted as they were or photographed as they were in the day.
Right.
We sometimes tried to avoid that.
Yeah.
And there's a rumor, for example, that Queen Victoria had one arm shorter than the other. And there's one painting. This might be rumor, don't hold me to it, but there's one painting in the Parliament building in Ottawa where the arm is actually shorter. And apparently at one point she said, "Would you just paint me as I am, please?"
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Uriah Smith, he not only he made a contribution even to the people with disabilities by having a patent, actually several patents for a prosthetic leg.
Come on.
And so this is something right now to see that contribution not only in our own faith family, but then also in society. This is, it's amazing. So anyway, I wanted to share these possibilities, or these pioneers with possibilities.
Thank you.
Wow. I had no idea. Well, this is horrible. What I'm about to say is probably not. I had a good friend lost a leg, and I called him. It was cancer, and so they took the leg above the knee, and I knew he'd be devastated waking up without his leg, and I called him, and he wasn't awake yet. He was in another country, and I couldn't travel. And finally, he got to the phone, and I said, "How are you?" He said, "Well, truth be told, I'm on my last leg." I said, "Oh, you're going to be fine, aren't you?" He says, "Yeah, they sent in a counselor, and they feel better now." But it bothered him. It bothers anybody. But he thrived after that. And I don't know if that was the sense of humor that helped him overcome because he was devastated. I could see it in his face. Right. He woke up without a leg.
Yeah, but to have a friend call and to show that care. And we want to have that kind of culture within the Adventist family, not only in your church locally, but all around the world. How can we show that care and concern, as well as then invite everyone to do their part, use their spiritual gifts to help us share the hope that we have here at the end?
Great. Oh, wonderful. And I hope you're listening. Sometimes we're scared to talk to folks because we don't know what to say. That happens when somebody dies. I don't know how you guys feel. I've been a pastor for years, and I still hesitate a moment. Oh, my friend lost his leg. What am I going to say? And in my opinion, and I could be wrong, Doug, but to me it seems that the call he'll remember more than what I said, unless I say something stupid. Right? If you say, which I am prone to do. If you've watched the show, you know that'll happen. But he remembered that I called. He didn't necessarily remember he remembered me asking how you doing the leg thing, but. Right. All right, in my hot little hands is the April issue of the Adventist Review. Now, if you are not subscribed to this, how many weeks in a row do I have to shame you into subscribing to this? AdventistReview.org. It's not expensive. This is what's going on in your world church, and I'm particularly excited about April and some of the content for the month that's coming up in May too, because we have at least 3 items that deal with Adventist Possibility Ministries. And Hannah, I know that you kind of are the editor who shepherded some of this, and some of them got your attention.
Yeah, definitely. We have one that was published in April, so people can read it now.
It's in this edition.
It is. It's called More Than Interpretation, and it's written by 2 women, Esther and Nohi, who serve in North America as the Deaf Ministries coordinators. And in their article, they share stories that they have personally experienced about the power and what can truly happen when hearing church members and deaf church members collaborate hand in hand. Amen. And I love the point that they make about how deaf ministry really has to be collaborative for it to be successful. Well,
we look at Jesus' life and his ministry. He worked as a team. So that example helps us to understand and to frame this. This is the forefront of mission today, is that we have to think of team. How can the deaf community, who are a part of our Advent movement, how can they help us to then reach the unreached deaf? Because around the world, this is over 83 million. And that's
the number is
83 million.
There are countries half that size.
Wow.
Yes. And so that's something right now that if you imagine that some of these countries, there's only 1 Adventist pastor who is deaf to then reach these multiple million. Here, I know that was part of those stats that you came here, the deaf mission gap. So that's also on page 26. Shout out.
Get your copy. You can't even find page 26 unless you get your copy. What's holding you back? All right. And look at the material that's in here. Doug's getting me all excited and I've already read it. All right. What did you see on page 26?
There's on this infographic page here that we list some of the countries, not all of them, but there's only one Adventist pastor to reach the entire nation of the deaf community there, including here at the United States. And so that's where there's an estimate. I saw some stats that there's over 3.3 million deaf in the community in this nation. But if we go to Sri Lanka, Poland, Latvia, Ukraine, Nigeria, and Ghana, it's the same situation there. There's only one Adventist pastor to then help share and make disciples in that context. So that's where, can we do something about that? I think we can.
But what are some of the things we could do? I mean, I've spent most of my career in evangelism. I always hired a signer. It didn't matter what it cost. I don't care. These people have a right to hear the gospel. They have a right to belong to a community, so I always did. And in TV, we made sure we were closed captioned. What are some steps a church might be able to do to help bridge that gap a little bit?
I think that you have outlined a couple best practices. It could also be that with Pathfinders to have them start learning their sign language honor. So you can start young to then, or invest, maybe there's a young adult who'd like to learn on how this can be a way to not only touch the community, but they can make this as a career, a mission career, to then be a bridge for the hearing community and the deaf community. So there's different ways to then do that, whether that's, Noe and Noelani and Esther are both professional sign language interpreters here with American Sign Language. But it could also start with, young people learning, to do their ABCs with their hands.
Right. So here's a question I've got on that front. If I'm going to try and learn, I try to learn. Here's the truth. I try to learn a new language every year, not fluent, just conversational. Because if I'm going to go to a country, I want to at least know, is my interpreter getting close? And, is it close?
Right.
Because sometimes it's not an Adventist interpreter, and I just want to, and I want to be able to greet the crowd and so on. But it occurred to me as you and I talked about this, doing this show together, I don't know sign language at all. Yeah. If I'm going to learn one, I think you told me there are how many versions worldwide?
Well, the thing is that there's over 400 different distinct sign languages.
Okay.
So every nation may have one, and it could be that it's recognized already by the government. In other places, that they still have to make that legislation to then advocate for their community of the deaf. And so that's where right now we have to learn to share and to make disciples using all languages.
Right. So if I'm going to learn, if somebody listening saying, you know what, I'm going to try, I live, my context is America, somebody else might be watching somewhere else, what should I learn? If I'm going to learn one, what would I do?
Taking a class? No, well, I mean, where's the bathroom is helpful.
Yeah, but there's 400 versions. Should I be learning ASL? Should I be?
Okay. Yeah. Well, it depends where you're at. Okay. And so that's where, because we're here, it makes it logical that you would learn American Sign Language.
Yeah.
However, that if you're in a different country, you could learn the sign language there. I remember meeting a friend, her name is Daisy Wenas. She's from Indonesia, so she was a master guide having her Pathfinders learn Indonesian Sign Language. But she saw a gap there, and she stepped in and learned the language and started connecting with the deaf community, because that's one of the honor requirements.
Oh, fantastic.
And from that, she was then able to see that when this is an archipelago, a family, a chain of islands, but their tsunami warning system was only horns.
Oh.
And so
kind of useless for some.
Exactly. And so that's where she was able, here's as Seventh-day Adventist, as a Pathfinder Master Guide, she was able to advocate for her nation and for the deaf community. And she was awarded an award by the United Nations for her advocacy among this people. So that's where you got to learn where you're at, the sign language.
Okay. So ASL for me.
Yes.
That would be my first best So, okay, we don't have the time for every question I want to ask, like GC Session. How many signers do we have there?
We had 9 there.
Yeah. Oh, we had
This
9 there.
yes,
Okay,
this
there's
last
the
time.
answer. I got it in. But we have a hat trick of articles to get through because we're going to forecast into May. You still have time to sign up for May, everybody. What are the other articles that kind of got your attention, Hannah?
We have a testimony called From Silence to Purpose. It's written by the director of Adventist Possibilities Ministries in the Eastern Nigeria
That's right.
Conference.
Okay.
And he shares a story of how he became deaf when he was really young.
Okay.
And he had to navigate, the societal influences there and the figuring out his identity being deaf. And ultimately, he comes to accept that God does not always take us out of our circumstances, but God can always use us despite them.
Amen.
And that's his point. That's what he talks about in his story.
And Eldad's story, his name is Eldad Mano, and so he's a friend of mine, and so that's something where to see how God is using him to make a difference among the deaf community in Nigeria. So it's thrilling to see.
Amazing. And so that's coming up in May? That's in May.
Yeah.
Again, AdventistReview.org. If you're not subscribed, I don't know why. Scroll all the way to the bottom of it. Go right there. I'll tell you what, we'll pause. Push the pause button on YouTube. Go to Adventist Review to open a new tab. Don't lose the show. Scroll to the bottom. Click subscribe. I'll take care of you after that. Honestly, why wouldn't you read this stuff? Okay.
But I wanted to just touch on this one. The takeaway for me on this story is mission. And so Eldad tells his story, and so powerful, and it moved me to tears when I read it. And so you guys got to read it too. But it was thrilling to see that from his experience, that how we have a chance to go to that, and I'm saying it as a frontier of our mission today. And that's one reason why I loved his story. It's a reminder that these numbers, to say 83 million of deaf community around the world, or 400 different distinct sign languages, these are numbers. It doesn't hit us, impact us. But to hear the story of one person, in this case, Eldad Manos, his story, to then actually see through his experience, to learn and to say, oh, this is what it was like. And to me, it helps us to frame this frontier of mission in a personal way.
I like that a lot. I mean, I deal in numbers as an evangelist, but when you meet the people, those numbers are people. And when people tell me numbers, you only care about numbers. I do care about numbers because numbers are individuals.
Well, Jesus, he came to save the whole world.
The whole world.
And right now, that's over 8+ billion.
Yeah.
And the United Nations says that 1 in 6 on this planet have some kind of disability.
That's amazing to me.
So that, to me, helps us to reframe this from a mission standpoint.
That's well over 1 billion people.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Hannah, number 3.
Yeah.
For the hat trick. I don't get to say Canadian hockey terms very often on the show. But
So our first one, we had the inspiration. This is what can happen when these groups of people work together. Then we had the testimony. And now with Now Hear This in May, we have the practical look at what churches can do to make service and ministry accessible and engaging to those who are hard of hearing.
Yeah. Well, and this, again, the takeaway for me is this article was written by Graham Weir, and he's on our task force for the deaf and hard of hearing, and he's an audiologist. He graduated. We're here, he's trained. He graduated from Gallaudet University, which is the only deaf university on the planet. So it's just in D.C., but he is advocating that what every local church can do for those who have a hearing impairment of some kind is to say, how can we involve them? And that's right now, he highlights bring your own device. All right, so there's a technology as it's shifting. There's new ways that we can then actually, local churches can set up, and using Wi-Fi, you can then have your own personalized settings using the technology. So it's thrilling to see.
I remember as a kid, there was one seat in my parents' church that had a little box with a dial, and you had to bring like a 1/4-inch headphone jack of your own and plug in. But now it's streaming on the app. It goes right to the phone.
And you can have your earbuds in, and you could be listening to, and however you need to adjust it for your customize for yourself.
That sounds like it makes it much easier for a church who might be small
Correct.
to invest in this outreach.
That's right.
Because if you're rewiring the church and you're a church of 20, you hem and haw, but an app is,
Right.
this doesn't sound expensive or difficult.
There's a way, there is some machinery there. You can read the article to learn more, and there's several different companies around the world, because we're talking to our global family, and so there are some that you can then look into see what works best in your area.
Great. Anna, the 3 articles again, remember, 1 is right now in the April edition, and then 2 are coming in May. The 3 articles to watch for?
More Than Interpretation.
More Than Interpretation.
And then we have From Silence to Purpose.
Okay.
And then the last one is Now Hear This.
Now hear this. That was my favorite title, I think. Now, we've talked a lot about deaf. We only have 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Let's talk for 1 minute about sight impairment. Let's talk about the blind. What is it that we should be thinking? We only got a minute, but I don't want to leave that community out at all. What should we know about that? I mean, and you've got resources, they can come to you.
Yeah, and that's something that as an Adventist family around the world, we have 3 ministries, Christian Record Services for the Blind, based in Lincoln, Nebraska. They've been going now over 126 years.
Really?
And so that's where Dr. Dexter Thomas is the new president, and he's more than eager to support local churches to help serve the blind in their community, as well as to mobilize people with low vision for mission. We have Christian Vision and Hearing Services in Australia, and then we have a budding new ministry for the blind in Ghana, in West Africa. So right now, we have 3 ministries to serve over 200 nations. Is that enough? No.
Not enough yet.
So that's where, again, this is the frontier of mission, to say, how can we mobilize the blind community? Just like DeGrove Turk in our Adventist history, he made a significant mission impact. And what about today? How can we mobilize the blind for mission?
How can somebody find you, find more resources, Doug? We've got a minute to go.
Well, go to our website, and you can see it on the screen here at possibilityministries.org.
Possibilityministries.org. And
right.
don't forget what happens on April 18, everybody.
Yes.
Fill up your wallet, get your checkbook, have your credit card ready. I'm telling you, there is a mission field we're not reaching yet in most communities. And I want you to give. The Lord wants you to give. This is really important. If we don't do it, who will?
Yeah. And that's where I appeal to our Adventist family and those watching here to then say, how can you mobilize your local church? And maybe it's people with Down syndrome, it could be the blind or other people with disabilities or the deaf. You can make a difference by empowering them for mission at your local church.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doug. I wish we had hours to talk about this. Don't want to miss these articles. Again, AdventistReview.org and Adventist Possibility Ministries.org. Thanks for joining us. And again, go to the website. Click the YouTube button. Just subscribe. Do it right now. I'll wait. All right. Thank you. And if you didn't do it, I know about it. Get your magazine, visit Doug's website, and get ready to give on April 18th. Thanks so much for joining us on Unscripted, brought to you by the good people at the Adventist Review.
Thanks for joining us today for Unscripted. We invite you to check out all the other offerings from the Adventist Review online 24 hours a day at AdventistReview.org.